Welcome to the Red Mountain, what is this called? The Red Mountain Community Church Podcast, where you can hear conversations with the people of Red Mountain Community Church as we pursue Jesus together. Each episode highlights what God is doing in someone's life or a specific theme in light of what God has revealed in the Bible. I'm Peter Franson, one of the elders and your fellow seat warmer here at Red Mountain Community Church. My co-host today is Brooklyn Meeker, our pastor of high school ministry. Brooklyn, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we are kicking things off, as we usually do, with the irresistible question, quote unquote. I find them irresistible because they've been placed in the script, and I need to say this, but otherwise, I think I could probably dodge some of these questions. Anyway, but this one I'm not dodging. If you had to live in a different country, which one would it be and why? Go. What do you think?
Any other country in the world, because there's only a handful of other countries to think about.
Yeah.
Man, that's hard, because I've gone to a few other countries, but I haven't been, I'm like, do I go to one that I've been to and had experience there, or do I just pick one that I have, no idea about, but all in my head, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on how adventurous you are.
And I have to answer this first.
Yeah.
I don't get to.
Sure. You know what? No, I usually make the co-host answer first. I will answer first this time and give you just a little bit of extra time to think. So originally I was going to say Australia because I thought if we ever get the Farscape reboot, they'd be filming there. I could maybe stock the sets. That would be awesome. I'd have to adjust to driving on the other side of the road. I think I'd have problems with that. You know what I think? I would probably, we had a trip to the UK in, Holly and I in 2023, and we had one day where we were on a bus tour around the Highlands of Scotland. And was it the Highlands? I can't remember. It was in Scotland, and it was beautiful and rainy and gray, and there was lots of green, and there was like these houses built of like stones on top of each other out in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, dang, if they can get Wi-Fi piped into one of those places, I could see myself living there and just having Amazon fly things to me. So I think that, and Henry Cavill is like headlining a Highlander reboot, and they've got to be doing some filming in Scotland at some point, right? So I'm thinking Scotland if I had to, but only if I had to, because I don't want to adjust to different plugs in your outlets and different rules and all these different things. I just leave me alone. I just want to be in my home. So I'm only answering this question because it says
American outlets.
Yeah, exactly, with my American outlets, and it says if you had to live in a different country. So I'm taking that part seriously. But I think I would land in Scotland. All right, Brooklyn, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard for me just because you're like, oh, it was rainy and gray, and I'm like the opposite. I live in the perfect place. Like
really? Were you raised here?
Yes, I was raised here. And
still you're like really into the sun and like the heat and stuff?
Yeah, and I'm a bad Arizonian because it's like, yes, I know we need the rain and I'll appreciate it, but if it rains for 3 days here, I'm like, all right, that's enough.
Wow.
Let's get back to our regular scheduled program.
Where are your people from?
My mom was from California, and my dad's from Wyoming.
Wow. Okay.
And I was born in Pennsylvania, but don't know anything about it. We moved here immediately, and I'm like, no, this is God's country, in my opinion.
Wow.
I know. I think green is beautiful. I really do. Mm-hmm. I do appreciate desert landscape. I like knowing the weather. I think it's probably maybe a control thing. And it's like, I know what the weather is going to be. Even this morning I went for a walk and I was like, oh my gosh, it was like 59 when we started walking. And
That's
I had
not quite
shorts
right.
on, and I was like, I wasn't prepared for this. This wasn't supposed to happen. So, okay, back to the question at hand.
Okay.
I think I've never been to these countries, so it's not one I've been to, but I always have thought I would love some kind of Mediterranean country, like a Italy, Greece kind of thing. I do love like the ocean and all of that.
Yeah.
And the sun does seem to shine there enough too. So it seems like you get good weather. You have the ocean, the breeze and all of that, but that the sun does stay up too.
Yeah.
And their culture just seems fun, like the familial culture.
Yeah, yeah.
I've never been there, so that's just me thinking I would like it, and that maybe I could live there. And their food sounds good. I think about food and like, what am I going to eat?
Okay.
I think I could eat there.
Yeah, in Italy? Sure.
Yeah.
Well, if something catastrophic happens and we all need to migrate,
we have to.
And you go to Italy, I'll think that Brooklyn's probably doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, as a reminder, guys, you can message us on Instagram or Facebook with suggestions for fun things we could do or talk about before the interview. But for now, we're going to move things along. Earlier today, Brooklyn and I spent some time talking with Angie Phillips about just some really difficult circumstances in her life surrounding a medical diagnosis that she was not prepared for, but some wonderful things happened as a result of it. Here's that conversation now. Well, Angie, thank you so much for being willing to sit in the hot seat, which hopefully won't feel too hot. I think this will be a really good time. But can you start by just kind of giving me a snapshot? I mean, these are things that I know. We've known you and your girls for probably longer than it feels like.
Yes.
But so for everyone listening, though, can you give me like a snapshot? How would you describe your current stage of life? Any people or routines relevant to that? However you want to interpret that question.
I am 50. I am not afraid to share my age.
Let's go.
See, that's
yes.
like I skirt around asking how old are you. That's why I formulate this question very specific.
What stage of life are you in? I'm 50.
Well, 50, because people always want to put numbers and they think it's a number. But honestly, at 50, I'm a mom. I have 2 daughters. My oldest is graduating high school this month, which is a big deal. And then my younger one is going into high school this year. So 13 and 17 are their ages. I'm working full-time. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I've been an NP for 14 years, which is crazy. It goes so fast.
What's that? What's an MP?
Nurse practitioner.
Oh, NP.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Not military police.
Okay, yeah. But you do have a background in the military.
In the military, yes. I was in the Army for 9 years. When I was a registered nurse, after college, I needed to pay off my student loans.
Okay.
And so my dad's military, I come from a military family, and I had always thought military would be a way that I would go, but I wasn't sure how that would look. And so when I got out of college and started working as a nurse, this was in Ohio, I started looking around and ended up realizing the Army was preaching to me. And this is why it was all about money when I was 22.
Okay.
Right? Sign-on bonus, loan repayment, all the things.
Yeah.
So the Navy and Air Force weren't offering. So that's when I joined the Army. And I served for about 9 years, and I got out right after my oldest daughter was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess I assume that most people they do military first and then college, but maybe I have that totally backwards. Okay.
For me, it was more of, I went to college right after high school.
Yeah.
And so I was like, how do I pay off the student loan?
Oh, yeah.
But I also was excited because the options at that time in the Army for nurses, I was an ICU nurse. I was in Germany. I got to go to some cool places. I saw things I don't like to share necessarily.
Sure.
There were very difficult things you see at that time, but I met some wonderful people. So I have, so that is in my background too.
Wow. Okay. So when and how roughly did you first come to faith in Jesus?
So I was raised in a home where my mom is Christian, very fundamental. No makeup, no jewelry. We're wearing pants. So we're already bad.
Okay.
Yeah. And my dad was more, I would say at that time, atheist, and he's more agnostic now.
Okay.
But I believed at that time God was the condemning God. That is how I was raised. I knew that Jesus was the son and we had Easter, but it was very judgmental.
Wow.
So I went off to college, and I'm from this small town in Ohio, right? So we don't have a lot of, it's a farm town. So I go to college, and I was about 20. I think I was a sophomore. And there was I found out later he was another university professor, not our university professor, but he played the steel drums.
Oh.
And it isn't something we heard much in Ohio. So here's a guy playing the steel drums, cool music, stuff we'd never heard.
Wait, is that the thing where like
Yes. That's exactly.
Okay,
That's
all right.
him.
Okay, cool.
But it was more of like the Caribbean, not quite as that
not
party
Little
style.
Mermaid,
Yeah,
not so Little Mermaid, but very similar.
What's the first thing that came to mind?
Yes.
That was impressive.
But it was really cool to hear, and it intrigued me because I played the flute since I was in 3rd grade, so music was always of interest. I've been in vocal since I was 4. So he had at that time, now remember I told you my age, they had flyers in the front of the drums.
Okay.
And they were paper flyers. And you picked it up, and him and his wife would offer a Bible study on Monday nights with free chips and soda.
Oh, well, there you go.
Now, a college student,
Yeah.
right? And I knew, I believed in God. I really kind of wasn't going as much at that time, kind of stepping back, not sure. So I decided to go to their Bible study. And that is when I found out that God's a loving Father. I discovered that for the first time. And I was baptized in their church. That's when I came to know that Jesus, who Jesus actually was. And that's when I truly asked for salvation, understanding what that meant.
Wow.
So I was 20.
20 at the time.
20 years
Okay.
old.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
So then fast forward years later, you've been through some intense and scary stuff.
Yeah.
Namely some health concerns that you had a number of years ago, which I'll bet when you tell me when that was, I'll be like, was it that long ago? Because it feels like it was like last year or something. But so what were those health concerns? What was the nature of those health concerns? When was this, or over a span of time, if you want to describe it that way? But yeah.
So I am one of those fortunate people that has good health. I think part of it was in the military. I learned how to jog. I say jog. There's no running here. But I learned how to exercise in my 20s because of them. I wasn't raised that way, but I kept it up, and I've kept it up since. I'm an avid hiker. I do my biking. I have an indoor bike. I paddleboard. I exercise 5 days a week at least. So I stayed like that. So that actually has helped, I think, part of why I've been able to be healthy. So you don't expect what happened to happen. So I was 42. This was in 2017. And I had been having headaches. And of course, we all justify headaches, right? I'm a mom working. My kids are 5 and 9. I'm not getting enough coffee, not enough sleep.
Yeah.
There's always a justification. But my headaches were turning into migraine headaches. And so I know, because of what I do for work, I know that to see a neurologist for true migraine medication, I would need an MRI. So I call my primary doctor, there's a story behind her too. It's an amazing story. She's a Christian woman. But Dr. Haynes, I called her and I said, hey, I need to see you. And I went in to see her and she's like, well, you need an MRI. Yes, we need an MRI. So I go get the MRI and it was...
Now remind me, because I don't know anything.
Okay.
Why is an MRI something that you don't want to bother with? Why is it a hassle or whatever?
It's a 30 to 40 minute... It's a 30 to 40 minute imaging test where you lay in a tube, literally a very thin tube. So if you're someone that's claustrophobic, it's not for you. A lot of people with claustrophobia, as a provider, I've had to prescribe Ativan so they can go in because it's just too tightening. And they've got, it sounds like rock music, these loud sounds going on. You have to wear earmuffs and everything.
Oh, really?
So a lot of people don't like MRIs. I knew what I was getting into, and I don't have claustrophobia, thankfully, but it was still I gotta lay there for 30 minutes,
Yeah, wow.
So I went through it, and afterwards, the gentleman that was MRI tech that day, he was very kind, and he said to me, you're gonna be okay. There's a song. But I just looked at him, like, okay, thank you. Never once did I think what was going to happen happened. 3 hours later, I had picked my 5-year-old from kindergarten. And if I start crying, I apologize. I picked her up from kindergarten. We're little cutie. She's so adorable. And I pick her up and get her home. And my ex-husband was picking up our oldest daughter from school and doing our regular family thing. And all of a sudden, I see my primary care calling me from her cell phone. And I'm like, what is she calling? What's she calling for? So Leanna's sitting at my feet, and we're laughing, and I pick up the phone, and in the blink of an eye, you have a brain tumor. And she read the MRI, and that is, I wish I could have controlled how I responded, but I just started crying because I know what that means. Unfortunately, I know what that means.
And what in your mind did that mean at that time?
It meant that I had a brain tumor and it could have been cancerous, meaning cancer is the first thing that goes to your mind.
Okay.
And I know there's there's benign tumors too, but it's that moment, it changes. You hear that call and then they start reading the MRI with the results of herniation and all these things. I know what all this means. I just started crying. Poor little girl. She had to see mom just lose it. And then I had to get off the phone with her. I knew a neurosurgeon, fortunately, with my job at that time, that I was able to call to get in to see, and he was able to guide me in what to do next. But, she saw me just bawling, and then I had to call their dad, and you got to get Hannah now. You need to come home. There's something we need to talk about. And so that is when that was on February 14th, 2017, Valentine's Day.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. That was I remember it for that date. So it was after that, on March 13th, 2017, I had my first craniotomy. And, you go in and you know that you get your head cut open.
Good gravy.
Which is terrifying in itself.
Yeah.
Are you going to be thinking cognitively? Are you going to be able to talk? Like when you talk about people having strokes, like, am I going to have a stroke after the cranie? These are all things that unfortunately are in your mind as you're going to go in. I didn't know anyone personally that had walked through this. I'd seen patients, right? But I'd never seen anyone personally. And it's just that moment of, okay. And as I was going in, it was me and you, God. It's me and you. And I went through the surgery. It was a 9-hour surgery the first time. They found out I also had an aneurysm, which is very unusual for someone to have both a tumor and an aneurysm. So they clipped that. So I sort of laugh about it and say, oh, I got a twofer because I got ready for tumor resection and an aneurysm clipping. But that aneurysm never ruptured. And I know who that is. I never doubted it.
Wow.
I wake up, have to go through the recovery. I'm nauseated. The first 24 hours was terrible. But on day 2, I sat up and I was looking around. I have pictures, like the side of my forehead, the left side was all black and blue because they had to take the hair and move it back and, all the things you have to go through. My face was, I literally, my youngest daughter, the blue monster that ate mommy's brain because of the bruising on my forehead.
Oh my gosh.
But I was able to get up and I was able to walk and I was able to eat and I was able to talk and I was able to do it. They did a neuro exam and I passed. And I was like, okay.
This was 2 days after the surgery.
2 days after surgery. And then they did the postoperative MRI and my brain was moving back into position because the tumor was gone.
Okay, yeah.
So things were moving back the way they should. And then after I get discharged, my 2 sisters came. That was the help that I had for that time because I couldn't drive. You don't want somebody like me driving after craniectomy. No. So my sisters both came. One came from Montana, the other from Alaska, and they took care of me. My sister was there for 2 weeks, so I had support. I have to say I'm very blessed. Your wife Holly and I have been good friends for years. She was there for me. My friend Jessica Stillwell was there for me. People from the church. I'm so grateful. I've had friends outside from different work and jobs that I've had that came to help me out. I was just... I wish I could go into such great detail, but I can tell you that God was there the whole time. He was there the whole time because people were there for me. I don't really have family here. I have an aunt, she's my cousin, but I call her my aunt because she's 75. And then I have a niece that live here. I don't have parents. I don't have anybody they were my family. They were here for me during that time.
Wow.
And so I recovered and went back to work about 7 weeks later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, Angie, can I just ask, between the February 14th date and then the cranial, how much time were you in waiting for, I've got this diagnosis and now I'm waiting to have something, a solution?
It's the waiting. So like I said, I knew the neurosurgeon. Thankfully, he was just a great guy. I worked with him actually. And so he referred me to a surgeon downtown at Barrow at St. Joe's because you couldn't see it on that MRI, but he had a suspicion there was a vascular component, and he and the team that I was with at that time, they did not do anything vascular. So he referred me to Dr. Peter Nakaji at St. Joe's at Barrow, who is both. He does tumor and vascular. So fortunately, that's who went in to do the surgery and found the aneurysm.
Okay.
So that was actually a gift. But I talked with the neurosurgeon, the guy that I know. I talked with him 2 days later, and then I saw Dr. Nakaji a week later. He got me in very quickly, so I'm grateful for that. And then I knew that day he scheduled me on March 13th. Okay. So I had like 3 weeks. And I was on steroids, which, by the way, I'm the opposite. Most people, they eat too much and they get angry. No. I have too much energy and I have no appetite. I'm like the exact opposite.
Oh, interesting.
I lost weight. It was great as a woman. You're excited. Hey, check this out, right? You get on Decadron and you're like, okay, I've got all this energy. I'm doing all this exercise and losing weight. This is great. But then I had to face the surgery part of it. So...
So I want to keep at this zoomed out place. We are going to come back. I want to drill down to some details at some point, but that wasn't the end, right? That you had a recurrence or something else later. Tell me about that.
So fortunately, my tumor was benign.
Okay.
And the fortunate piece is benign. That I'm grateful for. That was to me. You prayed to God, and it was a meningioma, which I was very grateful for. But
wait, say that again. What was that?
It's called a meningioma.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
It's a type of tumor. There's glioblastoma, meningioma. There's multiple types.
Okay.
But meningiomas primarily are 3 grades, and grade 1 is a benign tumor, and I had a grade 1.
Okay.
Now it was 6 millimeters from my left optic nerve, so he could not get all the cells, and he told me there's a chance for regrowth, but with meningiomas, they grow slowly. He assumed my tumor had been in my brain about 7 years, slowly growing over a 7-year period.
Okay.
That was what he told me when I had the craniotomy. So I said, oh, great. Okay. So slow growing. Good. My mind, okay, this is positive. So I had to have annual MRIs. I had, the first year was every 6 months. The second and third years were annually. The lovely year of 2020. We all know 2020. It was a great year. I mean, I'll never forget being at work when we had to suddenly slap down and wear masks and all the things we had to do. And I was working during this time, but I had my annual MRI. And my surgeon calls me and he says, Angie, your tumor's regrowing rapidly. Now that is not benign necessarily. So I knew what that meant. I remember that summer we went on a trip up to Montana to see my sister, a driving trip, because, you couldn't get on an airplane.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I just remember I was in the Grand Tetons, took a picture of my family, and just in my heart, will this be the last time? Because you don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So August 21st, 2020, lustrous, I went in for my crani 2. He needed to go in to get the tumor to see if it had developed into something more. Did it move into a different grade? Do I need chemo now? Do I need radiation now? Mm-hmm. So he goes in, I have crani 2, same, I recover, but the cells were growing rapidly, moving into a grade 2, which is like in between. So I underwent radiation. Okay. So 6 weeks after that crani, I went back to work, and I was undergoing radiation when I went back to work. And that in itself, you're basically strapped. You have a mask on your face, strapped to a table, and you can't move for 5 minutes. So you want to talk about someone, if you have any issues with things strapped to you like that. It was a hard time every day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And fortunately then, this is where it was moving into grade 2, so they had to do radiation. I fortunately didn't need chemo. Okay. But I had to have MRIs annually until 2023. And in 2023, there was no regrowth. They got it all. The radiation worked. And so my next MRI is due in 2028.
Okay.
So that's a big deal.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. So you have always struck me, for as long as I've known you, as a very strong, independent person that I don't imagine being afraid of any challenge. Now, you did describe, of course, that horrendous phone call and that moment with your daughter present. But I would have to imagine that in all of this stuff, your situation, would likely show anybody what their limits were, what they were physically, what they were mentally, what they were emotionally. In what way would you say in all of this, in specifically as you want to be, how would you say you discovered or reminded of your limits? And then in what way do you think God was meeting you there? What did that look like?
It's funny when you say that I'm strong and independent, because I don't think I am. Because without God, I wouldn't be here. And that's the only way that I've made it through a lot of the things I've faced in my life. There were things from family of origin, as per se, that I had to process as an adult. And then going through, there have been a lot of other traumas since that craniotomy that I've had to face. I don't know that I think it's God's strength. I've never seen myself as strong, because inside I'm that person that still, I break out in tears, and I'm walking through each and every one of these phases. It's that I can't go over it. I can't go under it. I can't go around it. I've got to go through it, but I'm not alone. And I think a lot of times we are feeling alone because Satan likes to play that game. He really does. But God is always there, and he shows up in ways that I'm going to give you a way that he showed up.
Yeah, great.
I'm going to give you a way he showed up. So I was getting out of radiation, and mind you, I was working nights at that time because I had to have radiation during the day. And I didn't know anyone who had walked this path, right? Well, let me back up. So this will be something I do have to back up on. I'm going to tell you the first story. After my first craniotomy, I didn't know anyone personally, but I knew, and I prayed to God, I need to know people. Are there people out there that have walked that? What does their life look like? Do they have some of the side effects that I do have that you don't see? There are things I have to walk in that no one else but me sees, but they understand because they've walked it. So 6 months after the first craniotomy, I had to have another procedure, non-neurologic related. And as I was recovering from that one, a nurse came to talk to me, and it turns out she was also a brain tumor survivor, invited me to the group called Faith, Hope, and Love Brain Tumor Foundation, who I'm a part of. And these two women, one of them wrote a book about being a brain tumor survivor. And they run this group for people in Arizona who have had brain tumors. And we get together annually. We have events throughout the year inviting other people too, so that they know that they're not alone. And that was a big deal for me, to meet other survivors that have walked my path, to see, 8 years later, you're still able to work. You're still cognitively capable. You're still able, you don't have dementia. Like, you start going through these things after you go through surgery. So when I was going through radiation, so this was the second time in 2020, I had met that group. 2020 comes around, I'm walking out one day and I'm just down. It's hard. I'm losing my hair. You're strapped down. You don't feel well going through radiation. You have a burn. There's just different things that you go through physically, not just mentally, but physically, that are hard. And I was walking out, and there was a woman I'd never seen standing there. It was an MD Anderson. And I'm walking out, and she turns around and she's got this cute little box. And she goes, "Oh, you look like you need this." And so she hands it to me, and I went, "Oh, thank you." And I don't even see where she goes, and I open it up, and it's this necklace that says hope. And I just got tears in my eyes, because Faith, Hope, and Love Brain Tumor Foundation, it's that hope in God. And I put it on, and I'm like looking at it, and I pick it up, and I look, and I can't find her anywhere. She's nowhere. I look around, I'm asking people sitting around me, "Do you know where she went, the lady that gave me the necklace?" And they're like, "Oh, no, we don't know where she went." Nobody ever saw, and I never saw her again. And I was right in the middle.
Wow.
So that is what I would have to say. The strength comes from God. It is not me. And I think one of the things, especially going through all of this, is seeing what God has brought me through, knowing He has been there, even though there's times you feel very lonely. It's a very lonely feeling. You're not alone. He is there, and He will surround you, and He'll bring people in. You'll get a phone call, or I get a necklace. I'm just saying, He does things that, in His way, that you didn't realize. You didn't even like. I never would have thought of a necklace, but the word hope.
Yeah.
I needed that. I needed that. I still need that.
Wow.
So I would say that definitely has been some of it, that anything that I've gone through, it has only been because of the grace of God, and that's who I lean on.
Wow. What have your supportive relationships looked like? I mean, you mentioned a few people, but maybe if you want to zoom in on some examples of what about those relationships, what they entailed, what the interactions entailed, that you found really meaningful, helpful, supportive, undergirding, anything along those lines.
Yeah, like I said, I have been really grateful, because I have had some amazing people, and I look at God and I'm like, I'm so grateful. He's given me more friends than I deserve. I have so many really awesome friends, but so I will bring out, name one of my very best friends. Her name's Kim Boragina.
Okay.
And Kim and I met when we were registered nurses at it's Banner University now. I'm going to call it Banner Good Sam.
Okay.
I'm not changing it. But back in 2000, when I came here, when I was still in the military, Kim and I met, and she's been my very best friend since. And she was there that first craniotomy was 9 hours, and she was there the whole time. And she's the one, she showed up at that OR that morning and stayed there the whole day with my ex-husband. And when the doctor came out to tell him, my ex-husband, "Hey, she needs an aneurysm clip, like, I highly recommend." And Kim, being a nurse, was like, I advise you do it. Like, she was there giving him good guidance and, supporting that. She was the one that came and brought me meals, things like that through the years. I mean, she's had to hear all my heartbreak and all the different things I've walked through, and she's always been there for me. To the point now, I have a trust that I've created as a single mom, and she is actually my medical power of attorney. So she's just been a rock. One of my very good friends from here, Jessica Stillwell, I met her as well. My prayer partner, I can go to her. She's the rock that when you call and you're crying, she's there to hear. She did provide meals for me after both craniotomies. She came to check on me. She's been there with me, and in my trust, she is me when I go, when the time comes, when I'm 90. I mean, because she knows I can share all of these things with her. And she also can give feedback. She provides, I think with Jessica, the big thing for me is that she's Christian, and that she'll provide. And I do find, I will say, Della Zwick is my Christian mentor. She has been there with me through so many things, and she's also a rock. I get guidance from her, because I seek that as a woman. I mean, I seek guidance from a Christian mentor, because I want to make the next right choice, the next right step. And she gives guidance on that. And she does, I mean, she's done, I can't even go into the details of things she's done.
Yes.
But she's been amazing for me. And then I would have to say, Vicky, Demand and Rosie Fryweir are also, they're ladies in their 70s, both very good friends of mine from a former church. They're also Christian mentors that I can seek guidance from when I'm looking. She's just great. Her husband was the music pastor at a church I used to attend before I came here because I was in a different part of town. She's my realtor, Rosie the realtor. She's got 5 kids, and she's walked some of the things I've had to face with my daughters and gave guidance on that because as a mom with teen daughters, I need guidance. I don't know what to do. Yeah. But they both are prayer warriors for me. Holly, obviously your wife, I've called her. Recently, I had an event with work, and she came there that night and was sitting with me for 2 hours watching me cry, praying with me. So these are examples. There's so many more. My friend Sherry Hemphill, she and I met here. She stayed with me last Christmas, but she sends me prayers. We send each other prayers and are there for each other in those ways. So those are just some. I mean, there are so many other ladies that have walked in who've just been there, and it's amazing to me. Like I said, do I deserve all of these people? No, but God lets me have them in my life, and I'm grateful for each and every one. 2 best friends from high school still. Wow. My friend Tina, I just saw her when I was there in Ohio. She'll send me prayers. So I think I would have to say they're my rocks. Wow. They're helping me a lot.
So you said 2028 is going to be your next,
my next MRI.
MRI.
Correct.
So like, how are you feeling about that, about your health, about like in the aftermath and thinking about just the state of your health and what the future may hold? How are you feeling and thinking about that right now?
So that's an excellent question. Like I was saying, I've always exercised. I've always taken care of myself. The only medical diagnosis I have right now is hypothyroidism.
Okay. I don't know what that is, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
It's just one of those things with, I'm gonna make a laugh here, and it's a medical thing. But
That's
they
fine.
always say if you're fair, fat, 40, and female, you're gonna get hypothyroidism.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I had to add 50 in there.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's a genetic thing.
Okay.
My mom has it.
Gotcha.
So that's the only medical diagnosis I have. I have no high blood pressure, no hypertension. I saw my primary care earlier this year. My cholesterol's all within normal limits. The blood pressure, everything is all. So I have no real true medical conditions. I can go on my hike. I can go on my biking. I can go do all the things that I want to do. The limitations, this is where the laugh comes in. So I've had my head cut open. We can laugh. I have to say the laughter. I have great balance on land.
Okay.
But I paddleboard.
Oh.
So I have to sit when I paddleboard. Don't try to have me stand on anything in water because that is not stable enough for me. I would land on I learned the hard way. Okay. So I sit for all of that.
Okay.
So really when it comes to how I'm feeling, I feel good. I mean, I am very healthy. That's great. I have an endocrinologist who manages my medical problem, but other than that, there are no other issues.
Oh, that's great.
I feel good. I don't have the headaches I used to have are gone. I haven't had a headache. I mean, I've had a headache, but it was truly lack of caffeine. You see the cup in my hand. I live on caffeine. We all know. I share that regularly. But other than that, I don't have any of those problems.
That's great.
So I have to say, thanking God that there were the side effects of the craniotomy. I've had facial structure change, which as a woman is hard to live with because as women, we're so much more critical on ourselves. That's been a challenge. I had to have...
just from my perspective, I have no idea what you're talking about. So whatever it is, it's not, I don't think it's noticeable.
It's not, a lot of people don't notice it. We notice it ourselves. I think as women, we definitely are much more critical on ourselves.
Gotcha.
But I did have the temporal lobe was the bone was, that muscle atrophied and I had to have fat grafting put in because as much as I'm hiking and the risk of falls there.
Oh, okay.
That's the weakest part of your skull. You have to have something there and the muscle was gone. So I had to have that filled in.
Okay.
There are some, there will be times I have to do these games on my phone to kind of help with word finding because I'll find myself looking at something going, what? And then it takes me a second. Okay, that's right.
Okay, yeah.
That's something that happened after radiation that I've had to work with.
Huh.
And then, of course, just making sure I keep my balance and don't go on things with water without sitting first.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
all right.
But as far as health goes, I feel really good. And I'm grateful to God. They were benign. It was a benign tumor. It kind of started to move into something else, and it was captured quick enough that we caught it. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the time that we live in now where we have the surgical opportunities and treatment for these things. If 100 years ago, it would have been a different scenario.
Yeah.
So a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah.
For sure.
So in what ways since this experience and in light of it, do you think you've seen the Lord working in your heart and in your life? Like what kind of lasting impact has it had, and the way the Lord worked through it on other areas of your life?
Well, even when you get things slapped in your face that you don't ask for and you have to go through it, he'll get you through it. He will, and he has. In every scenario that I haven't even shared, he's got me through every time. He's provided people, he's provided resources. I know that he's there. I will say one of the things it has done for me is me being a little more open to share my story. And I did so with some other people that attend church here. Jeannie Pefferly is a very good friend of mine, one of my rocks. And we met at the Mexico trip a few years ago. And Brooklyn was with us. Jeannie and I went down together this year. But why is that a big deal? I'm going to tell you. Jeannie was in a car accident in the 2023 Mexico mission trip. And I went to see her. I talked with her, and I knew her, but I was asked from a medical perspective some guidance. So I went and I talked with her and recommended an MRI of her neck. And she got it done, and they found that she had a brain tumor. And I walked her through her craniotomy. And she got through it. She's doing fantastic. I mean, she's doing really, really well, working all the things. She inspired me to get into the worship team.
Oh.
Because I had always wanted to do it. I've been vocal my whole life. Obviously, I always, have been friends with you and Holly for years, and I've had so much admiration. But I saw her up on stage the week before her craniotomy singing. And it spoke to me. Someone said, and I know it was God, you should probably do that. And so I did. And now I get to worship on the worship team, and it's been a wonderful thing, but I get to share that with Jeannie.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like God has made me be more open with people than I don't know that I would have been that open about medical things. Not personal medical things.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd be happy to offer medical information to people when they ask, but my personal medical I'd keep to myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't share it.
Yeah.
Well, and especially you talking about like when you were going through it, you're like, I don't know someone personally. I've seen this, but I don't know someone personally.
Yeah.
And just to even see that the Lord was using this, and he's like, and you're going to be that person for someone who may not
Exactly
have someone in their life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and
that's
then
incredible.
That's one story. There's another one. I'm going to get tearful. I was in the women's Bible study group on Tuesdays last spring in 2024.
Okay.
And generally with my schedule at that time, there was no way I could do that. But I had all these Tuesdays off. And I thought, I'm supposed to go to the Bible study. So I started going to the Bible study, and I do the worship team there and whatnot. And a couple weeks before the end, I was asked to go talk to another woman named because she was about to have her first craniotomy for a brain tumor. And so happy to. Like I thought, all right. So I go meet. Turns out we have a lot of a network, and I ended up being the nurse practitioner for her after her surgery.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, yeah.
And, she and I, we've talked about it. She's very open about it, too. She attends church here, and she also has a sister that is really well. She's in the Bible studies as well. But I share this for the fact that I wouldn't have shared with them. I don't think I would have shared with them had I not walked this journey myself. I don't think I would have. From a medical side, you don't really understand it.
Yeah.
Because you're not the patient. You know what it's like medically, and you can explain what you expect to happen, what you think will happen, what the treatment could be. But unless you walk it, you don't know. And so I think what that's done for me is the realization, no matter what it is that you're going through, if you're a breast cancer survivor, if you're a brain cancer, your brain tumor, your whatever the medical condition, if you're willing to open that up, somebody else needs to know you. Because God's going to use you. He's used me to show you can get through it. He used Tatum and Kate to show me that you can get through it. So I feel like that's something he's done for me, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you've been brought to a place where you're willing to share because of all you shared just now. So thank you. This has been wonderful. I appreciate you braving the microphone and just sharing your experience with us. I think that there'll be some people that really appreciate and benefit from it. So thanks, Angie.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so something cool that Angie mentioned before we recorded and then reminded me again once we were done is that this month, May, is Brain Tumor Awareness Month. And nobody behind the scenes knew that. So that strikes me as very interesting, But we want to, if we can figure it out and remember, put a link in the show notes to the Faith, Hope, and Love Brain Tumor Foundation that was really encouraging and helpful to Angie. So if that's something that you think you would find useful or that could contribute to your hope in a difficult time like this, then that is a resource that you can check out. But that's interesting to see kind of what God orchestrates. Brooklyn, so what's something that for you stood out in our conversation with Angie?
Besides the whole thing, it was such a good, the story, but then to hear somebody just articulate their heart, and the details of it, what stood out to me is just, I kept thinking, and because I can fall victim to this as well of, not victim, but I can totally ease into this of chasing health. Like I think health in our society is an idol that we can really chase. And like, I want to do all these things, and all I'm thinking about is all these healthy decisions that I'm making so that I'm preventing ever getting that phone call. And she's talking and sitting here, I'm like, I'm a healthy person. And the diagnosis still came. And instead of having all these what if thoughts of just hearing her story can help somebody like myself even just say, even if this happens, I know who has me. Like, I know who God is, and I know that he is in control of all things. And to hear it just radiated from her of like how much her intimacy with God grew in that of, seeing him show up in strangers, seeing him show up in her friends in the church community coming around her. Like she got to see this aspect of God. She talked about, I met him as my father. She got to see him as her healer, as her caregiver, as the one who sustains her body. And I just thought that was just a cool thing to hear in her story of like, she's got that, her follow-up in 28, and it doesn't sound like she just sits and like griddles, like, twists her hands at, what's coming in 2028. She's just like, no, I have hope of the one who's brought me through this is the one who's going to continue to bring me through whatever comes. And that was just encouraging to hear. Yeah.
And she still enjoys fitness. I think I would imagine that if she was pursuing that, she didn't say in particular that she was pursuing health as like an idol, but
sure.
But I mean, like there's a healthy way to do that, like in terms spiritually healthy way to want to be good stewards of our bodies and for our bodies to work and be of use to the kingdom for as long as possible, but there's like a fine line between that and like trying to maintain control of our lives and conjure up our own sense of security and safety and longevity and stuff like that. And that's I think you've nailed something really insightful there, Brooklyn. Something that I really like that she pointed out was the relationships that she had with older women who served as mentors to her. I think that it can be true of a lot of churches and just our own tendencies to seek out people that are just in the same stage of life as us, that we have common interests with and stuff like that. And there's benefit to those kinds of relationships, certainly. But when we get tunnel vision for that, we miss out on what God has placed in the body for our good. And in particular, people that are older and more seasoned in the faith than us that we can learn from. I mean, she had not just one woman like that, but multiple women in her life that were older than her and that she was like seeking wisdom from. And that's such a great and humbling example, because I think many of us, myself included, do not naturally seek out a lot of counselors, people that are older and wiser than us. And so I really appreciated that. Okay, well, I'm looking at the wrong part of my script. There it is. Okay. This is the end, guys, of this episode of the Red Mountain Community Church podcast. A big thank you to Arian Rossi for organizing and editing the show, although Peter Hemphill is joining in to help out now, so big thanks to Peter as well. Also to Jessica Garcia for her oversight and to the pastors and church leaders who help recommend our guests. You can follow Red Mountain Community Church on Instagram and Facebook, where you can also leave us comments and suggestions to help make the show better. Also, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you don't miss out on the next episode. And if by chance you want more of me blabbing on topics relevant to Christian geeks, you can check out my personal weekly show, the Christian Geek Central podcast. In the meantime, I'm Peter Franson.
And I'm Brooklyn Meeker.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Sunday.